What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Prepscast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Andrew Tenio and Jake Weiss. Fellas, it's the last week of the regular season. For the most part, I think most of our teams know what their playoff situation, whether they're in or they're out. There's only a very small handful that need to get a positive result this week to make the postseason. But there's also a lot of teams that are playing for seeding this week, and what are some consequential games?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, you summed it up pretty nicely there, Alex, because I've been trying to look at some stuff, and it's been confusing. So, you put a nice little bow on it all together.
Well, let's just go ahead and start with the teams that need to win this week and possibly get a little bit of help to make the postseason. Jake, I think your 3 games to watch on your high school column this week really centered on that. So why don't you start us off with this conversation?
Yeah, but the big 3 kind of around here are going to be, locally, it's going to be Rudder, Waco. That's the first one, I argue. The next one, Bartlett, Iola. And then the third one is Navasota and Almeda Crawford. Did I say that right?
I think they just go by Crawford.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's Fort Bend Crawford.
It's Fort Bend Crawford. Yeah, okay. Those are kind of the big 3, and like you said, Navasota. I'll quickly highlight Navasota Crawford. That one's not if you win, you're not going to the playoffs. That one's just pure seeding. Iola Bartlett. I think that one is. I think Iola's got the 4 seed locked up.
Mm-hmm.
I could be a little wrong there. It looks like they are. I know they're in 4th right now. But like I said, it gets a little tricky once you figure out all the tiebreakers, and you got to wait for the games to decide. And then obviously Rudder, Waco. Rudder does need a win. They need to win to stay in the playoff hunt, and then they also got to kind of look around in their district and see. I think the big games you got to look at are Colleen Ellison, Waco U, and then Belton and Brenham. Is I right about that? There we go. Okay. So those are the big kind of 3 I think around here that you really got your eyes on for playoffs.
Now, Andrew, you and I were talking here in the office yesterday specifically about Rudder and their situation. There's a couple of different routes that Rudder could take, but most likely they really just need to win and see how the cards shake from there.
Yeah, they don't need to be scoreboard watching too much. You can kind of focus on that once the game's over. They really got to take care of business against Waco. But obviously, if you want to look in those scenarios for fun purposes, and I think Izar may have sent you a message on this, so shout out to Izar for giving us this information, kind of helping us out a little bit with how the point differential goes. So if I get it right, Rudder needs to win, and then obviously they need Waco U to lose because they hold the tiebreaker over them. There's also a scenario where Rudder could actually get the 3 seed as well, but it would require a University loss and a Belton loss, I believe, and they're kind of in that 3-way tie, and then it's I think the points are broken off of point differentials that they played each other because everyone's 1-1 against each other. But I think based off of how much Rudder beat University and how much University beat Belton, et cetera, I think Rudder holds the advantage over the 3. So there is even a small advantage that they could get 3rd place. But I think what needs to be in the Rangers' mind is just getting a win, getting off of this losing skid that they've been on for the past couple weeks, and just clinching, at least giving yourself a chance to make the playoffs this year. So.
Jake, you had something to say on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and Andrew kind of already touched on it, but yeah, I got pull up the message from Coach Izar yesterday. So basically, its scenario was this. If it's a 3-way tie, if Rudder beats Waco, that's step 1. Brenham beats Belton, and then Colleen Ellison.
Which I think we all would agree Brenham's
I'd be shocked if Brenham lost. Literally, the only thing I could think of on that one is like if Brenham just hits everybody, since they've already locked up the district title.
They don't strike me as a team that's going to do that.
I don't think so either, though. I don't either. But, if Brenham beats Belton, and then if Colleen Ellison beats University, which that's a pretty interesting matchup. I think that's pretty even. Rudder would get 3rd on points, and then University would be the 4th seed. And then he sent me the point differentials, but we don't have to talk about that just right now. But that's kind of the example. If Rudder wins, the other 2 lose. Rudder's 3rd because of that point differential.
Yeah. Well, looking around the rest of Bryan College Station, Bryan's playing Colleen in what will be the Vikings' last game of the season. Obviously, a pretty disappointing end to the season after, they had gotten a little bit of momentum. We're feeling all right. Jake, what do you think this game is going to just mean to Bryan and kind of what the Vikings are feeling, knowing that their season's going to be over once the clock hits 0 on Friday.
Yeah, just finishing strong. I mean, I asked Coach that same question, Alex. Just kind of, hey, you guys have one game left. I talked to them after the Waco Midway game, and he said this exact same thing. Just, finish strong. Let's send these seniors out on a strong note. I mean, think about all the big plays these senior class has made, the last few years with Terrence Lewis, Boone Turner, all those guys. So strong class there. They want to send them out on a high note. And, hey, look towards the future a little bit. With some of those younger guys like JaValen Wade, Trey Odell on defense, kind of, give you a little spark for next season, a little momentum if those guys can come out there and make some big plays as well.
A&M Consolidated, they're hosting Lockhart. Consol has already locked up the district championship. They've locked up the 1 seed. Tigers are feeling good. It's just play smart and stay healthy for them probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, I talked to Coach Schmidt about the game this week, and, yeah, he said the exact same thing as, staying focused. I talked to him and Johnny Brown about the game as well, offensive lineman there. Coach Schmidt also pointed out Lockhart's got a good offensive line and defensive line. So it'll be a good test for Consol in the trenches there as, they try to get, stay the course, like you just said, Alex, but also, kind of look towards the playoffs a little bit there because I think we've been looking at the brackets a little bit around the office, and we all know it's going to be kind of tough. I think it's going to be, like you said a couple weeks ago, 5A Division I think it's going to be, in this region specifically, going to be a little tougher than I think we all thought originally. So, definitely need to finish strong this week.
Yeah, and I think Consol already knows who their first playoff opponent's going to be.
I believe it's Friendswood.
Yeah, they're going to host Friendswood next Friday in the bi-district round. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, they are. That's what the plan is, next Friday, 7 p.m.
Well, College Station's off this week, but holy cow, what a game last Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, a little spooky
I was
on
going to say, you were
Halloween night.
there.
Yeah, Cougars, man, they were looking like they were on the brink of really getting sideways with Weiss, and all of a sudden they just turned on the Jets on the run game and clamped down on defense. And look, Jackson Shad, Weiss's quarterback, that kid's going to be really good in a year or two. And he looked like he was not playing like a true freshman. Well, I guess it's just a freshman in high school in the first half of that game. And then College Station really adjusted the way they were pressuring him and covering, and really made him look like a younger player in those last 2 quarters. And then credit to College Station. I mean, they were just running the ball between the tackles, had 3 solid options, of course, with Aiden Martinez-Brown, Wilson Stapp, and Connor Cashin.
A 3-headed monster.
Yeah, and that O-line really got some good push during that second half, and they were down 31-14, found themselves on the other end of that by the end of the night, 44-38, in what was a really consequential game. College Station locks up the 2 seed, and now Pflugerville Weiss, they got to play Austin Anderson this week for the 3rd and 4th seed. Those 2 teams are going to be playoff bound, but now they're playing for seeding this week. That should be a really good game over there in the Austin area.
Yeah, I was going to say, I covered that Consol Austin Anderson game, and I think we all kind of forget. You look at the final score of that one, and you go like, oh, Consol just, did what they've been doing. But that game was tied at half, 21-21. So I think it'll be a good dogfight there for 3rd and 4th. And I think College Station, too, with the 2 seed, they get a first-round home game, don't they?
Yep, they do.
Yeah.
I think the opponent is still to be determined. There's some there was an upset in that other district last week. Angleton lost to LaPorte.
I think they get the winner of Crosby or loser of Crosby Angleton. I want to say that's right.
Yes.
So, and they play this week, obviously. So.
Right. So that kind of threw a wrench in the plans because it was looking like they were gonna just get Crosby.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Angleton lost, then it was, whoa, okay, LaPorte's out in front, and now there's a very consequential game this week. Between District 9, 11, and 12, there's some really good football being played.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a fun November, December around these parts for those 2 teams that are for sure playoff bound. So, well, guys, we got some other big games. I sent you guys that email of who's in the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Leon and Normandy, okay, they're fighting for playoff spots, and you got 2 Brazos Valley teams going at it with Hearn and Normandy.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one because Hearn. We've talked about this before. Hearn went winless in non-district. Don't want to say you hit the panic button or anything, but you kind of go like, how are these guys going to do in district? Because I think we kind of all thought Hearn was going to be, in the mix potentially for the district title, or at least because this is a brand new district for them. That district of Norman G, Centerville, Leon. Am I missing somebody? I know it's not just 4 teams.
Camden, Gordon Camden.
Gordon Camden, there we go. And I feel like there was one other team in there.
Oh,
Groveton, there we go. So yeah, it's 6-team district, but yeah, I remember way back when we talked about realignment. This is a brand new district for Hearn. But hey, give them credit. Their only loss in district so far was Centerville. I think they opened with Centerville, and then they've won 3 in a row. So, which has got them in second right now. Hearn is in second. So big props to the Eagles over there because I know, you go 0-6. You're probably feeling pretty crappy about yourself a little bit, a little down. But hey, it didn't affect them at all because reel off 3 in a row and they're feeling good. And I got to give them a lot of credit too for that win over Leon because Leon was another team that I think in the preseason, well, we talked about it on the podcast when they played Centerville. It's kind of up there in terms of like, does Leon have the horses to take down Centerville this year? Obviously, it didn't go that way, but credit to Hearn for staying the course and getting it done. Some of that Eagle speed you like to talk about, Alex.
Darion Mitchell, man, that guy is a freak of nature out there. Quite an athlete. Somerville Bolano, Andrew, is also a consequential game. Somerville, on one end, they're the district champs, first since '83. Milano, they really need a win.
I think we were talking about earlier. I could be wrong. I think Milano and Isla are actually tied at 3-3 in district. So unless I could be wrong, I think this is a hunt for a playoff spot. If Iola loses and Milano wins, I think they take Isla's spot. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I don't. This is where it gets tricky because Iola has the
district.
Iola has the head-to-head.
Yeah, they do.
So I'm a little that's where I always get a little shaky.
But if Iola loses and Milano wins, then
they'll have
it's
the better.
4-3 versus 3-4.
Yeah. So that is a big game for Milano. Then obviously for Somerville to lock up the district title, obviously it's a big deal. So
yeah, no, they got the 1 seed. They can win the district outright
Make it
this
official.
week.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, and speaking of seeding, Burton at Granger. That was probably the hardest game to pick on our picks this week, and it's gonna be a dogfight over there in Granger.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think looking at that district standings, that's for second and third.
Yes.
Am I right about that? Because Somerville's first, OMMO's next too. So yeah, that's a tricky one because, I mean, give a lot of credit to Somerville. But I will also admit, when we were looking early on in the year and we saw that Somerville had Burton and Granger back to back, you're kind of going like, ooh, it's gonna be a tough stretch for Somerville. Then Somerville goes 2-0, so then it's like, well, man, who's going to be second and third? I think, truthfully, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of thought Burton and Granger could potentially be like a district title game, here towards the end. Obviously, it didn't shake out that way, but big difference between a home playoff game and going on the road. And if you're Burton, you probably want that home playoff game just a little. They both probably want it, but if you're Burton, you probably really want it because you've only had one home game this year. Granted, it was your last game of the season, your last home game of the season. Finally got a bust in the new stadium, so... yeah, I give Burton a lot of props there. I bet you they're going to be a little bit extra fired up to use that stadium and those facilities again.
Hey, Brazos Christian hosting Rose Hill Christian. Jake, you got to ride on the Caffey brothers this week. Just give our listeners a little insight on what they can go check out at theeagle.com.
Yeah, man. So really enjoyed talking with those guys. A little fun, little sibling rivalry there. Of course, I had to ask them, who's better, on the field. They do get to go on one-on-one a little bit. We've talked before about how Jackson, they use them all over on offense. Slayton, the younger brother, he's just really, he plays some running back, but he's primarily a cornerback. He's a starter on the defense for them. And so, they get to go on one-on-one a little bit in practice. And Jackson, being the older brother, he did give Slayton a little credit. He said, hey, there's been a couple balls that, have been thrown my way that he's, got down with his speed. But, I think I'm the overall better player. Slayton, he said, hey, give me a year or two. Let's run this back. So that was fun. But, no, it was great talking with those two guys. They actually start together on the defensive side of the ball. Jackson's kind of an outside linebacker, and like I mentioned, Slayton's at cornerback. They're actually both there on the right side of the field together, so right next to each other. So real fun story talking with those guys. Heck, Jackson's a senior, Slayton's a sophomore, so they've got the last 2 years together. And I know for both of them, it's meant a lot the last 2 years, and they're really hoping too that it doesn't end anytime soon. With potentially them going 10-0 this week, and I think if they go to state, they'd have that bracket. They'd have 3 more games.
Yeah.
So
it's a 16-team bracket.
Yeah.
No, 8-team bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
8-team bracket.
So I know they're trying to, enjoy, soak up these moments together as long as they can, and they're really hoping a state run is in the cards there.
Speaking of the private school ranks, we got a team actually starting the playoffs this week. Andrew, give us a little insight on BV Chia.
Yep. Shout out the Mustang. Talked about it a couple times this year, but begin the playoffs this week with Jubilee Brownsville. They've kind of continued to fly under the radar in the area. Maybe stumbled out of the blocks a little bit, but won 5 of their last 6. Looking good. 7-2 right now, and I'm sure they're looking forward to that matchup. So,
well, hey, we're also in the thick of volleyball playoffs, and we can touch on that just a little bit since we don't get to, touch a little bit on many other sports. First year that at all divisions they're split into Division I and Division II. I should say at all classifications they're split in Division I and Division II. Guys, who are the teams to be looking out for as we've entered the second round of the volleyball playoffs?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, I was going to let you go first. Okay, so, I'll give a little shout-out to the match I'm going to cover tonight. A&M Consolidated Barbers Hill. It's kind of unusual because, for me at least, this feels kind of like a regional tournament matchup. But with this split, I don't exactly remember how it all looked in terms of who was the winner, who was the runner-up. Well, we know Consol won their district. But that's going to be a good matchup. If you remember, Barbers Hill last year knocked College Station out of the playoffs in the regional tournament, and then was one match away from going to state. They lost to Fulshire, who ended up going. I think Fulshire won it all. I could be wrong. I know
they were really good last year. I remember that.
Yeah, they were really good in their last year in 5A. But that's one I've got my eye on. And then, got to give a shout out to the Iola Bulldogs there. Defending state champs. Interesting note too for people that haven't been following along. Iola and Leon the last 2 years have played in 2A for a spot at state. But now with this split, with the way it goes, because it's based on your enrollment numbers in the latest realignment. If you're going in Division I or Division II, Iola's in Division II, Leon's in Division I. So hey, those two won't have to meet each other. In a region quarterfinals.
They can both win a state.
They
can
both win a state championship
if they can.
The only time they may see each other is at a state tournament, but it might be with one of them walking off the court after their match, and then hey, you can use our side of the court or however it works. But that's kind of an interesting wrinkle of this new playoff in terms of their splitting it like that.
Yeah, I was at College Station on Tuesday. I'll be there again tonight. The Lady Cougars took care of Kingwood Park in 3. They got Galveston Ball tonight. And that was something I kind of talked to Davis about. Kind of wanted to get her point of view on kind of the splits, and she thinks it's real interesting just having to scout for teams that maybe you're not used to scouting in the bi-district rounds. There's chances where a first place team can be in Division 2, and the third place team could be in Division 2 in another district, and so kind of how that's kind of those wrinkles have been really interesting to see. CSTAT playing Galveston Ball in the second round. I haven't been around here too long, but I don't feel like that's super normal that a team like Galveston Ball plays CSTAT this early on. And like I said, Barbers Hill playing Consol this early on. So that's kind of been an interesting aspect to look at that. But Lady Cougars took care of business, and they look forward to doing that tonight.
Hey, could happen in the football playoffs. A&M Consolidated could play Galveston Ball in the second round.
Yeah.
And Barbers Hill right in the thick of it there, too. Man, it's going to be a fun playoff season.
Yeah.
But hey, we still got a week of games to play. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on high school football here in the Brazos Valley. We'll be back next week previewing the playoffs. It's that time of year. We'll see you then.